Hey guys, Pingu Charts here, and welcome to the first ever episode of our mentorship program. In this episode, we are going to be talking about support and resistance, how to draw support and resistance, and of course, confirmations on that level. So in this chart, we are going to be starting with Litecoin. We are not going to be changing the chart. It is this pair specifically, of course, because of the fact that it is a naked price action. You can see that as of right now, I have absolutely no indicators. I have absolutely no lines drawn on the chart anywhere. It is just going to be starting with the basics and then going into the intermediate side of the course. So starting off, what is support and what is resistance? Well, support can be seen as a floor. So what that means is when price comes down or a stock comes down to that price, there are buyers waiting at that level and then it continues pushing higher. Just like resistance, when the price goes towards resistance, sellers are waiting at that level and then it pushes the price back down. So now that we got the basics of support and resistance, we are going to be using the Litecoin chart. Now, the first thing I would do is, of course, go on the daily time frame. This is very important because on the daily time frame, it tells you a bigger picture and the levels are more important because they weigh in a lot more. What I mean by that is it shows the fact that on a daily support level, you will tend to see a lot more pressure in terms of resistance and support, and this is why I go ahead and look at the daily. Now, starting off on the daily, I want to see, of course, the lowest point on the chart, basically where I saw buy pressure come in. Now, what most traders do is they will go ahead and draw a support line like this. The reason for that is they would assume that, yes, right now we can see that there was a ton of buy pressure coming into the market on this level. Now, the reason why I don't specifically draw the chart like that, or of course my support, is because I trade off wicks. Now, a wick basically is where the lowest point on the chart or the highest point of the chart was, and where you saw buy pressure or of course sell pressure. It creates this little line. Now, that is basically what I'm looking for when I am looking at a daily support. Zooming out, I would look at where exactly do I see the most amount of wicks on the chart. If you guys can notice that the lowest point on the chart, or rather the most points, would have been right here. Why? Because you can see that there was one wick here, there was another wick here, and there was another wick here. And that is exactly where I would go ahead and draw my first support line. Now that we have drawn our support level, you can see that the first price, of course, where buyers are eagerly waiting to come in is going to be around $54.46. But we are not done just yet. And the reason for that is you can see that this price action over here, so all of these levels here, we cannot ignore as well. So what I usually do is when I'm going ahead and drawing my supports, I will go ahead and draw another line into that range. So basically the lowest point on the chart. And the reason I do it like this is because if the price does end up breaking support at $54, a lot of traders don't really know what exactly is going to happen after that. That is why it's very important to draw a secondary support at the lowest point of the chart, because when support does end up breaking, it tends to be extremely quick. So when, at this case, let's say that support were to break at $54.46, you can see that the price did end up seeing a major drop and then it bounced at $40.48. So now we have our two support lines drawn out. So now that I've drawn out my support zones, what I'm going to be doing now is drawing out my resistance zones. So just like how we drew our support levels where we saw the most amount of bounces, we are going to be drawing our resistance level now where we saw the most amount of rejections. So you can see on the chart, we had quite a few rejections around this zone. We had quite a few rejections around this zone. The reason why I have my chart on the daily, once again as a reminder, is because I want to see the full picture. If you are as a trader and all of a sudden you are only analyzing price action like this, you won't know exactly where resistance is until you can zoom out and see the bigger picture where the most amount of rejections happened. So what I would do in this case scenario, of course, is look for the most amount of rejections, and I can see that the market rejected many opportunities around this zone right here at $73.44. The reason why I drew it like that is you will notice that there was quite a bit of rejection around this range. You can see very clean wicks at this level, as well as the fact that even when you zoom out otherwise, you will notice that we had quite a few rejections on current price action once again right here. So that is going to be my first level as resistance. Now, just like I told you guys before, as the first level of resistance is drawn, you can see that price did end up breaking a little bit higher. Just like on the chart before, price did end up breaking a little bit lower on that support zone. So just like that, I would go ahead and draw a secondary resistance level, which would be right around that zone right there. So I go ahead and draw my tool right at this level. And now I have a secondary resistance. This is basically where the price ended up rejecting. So you can see I have two support zones. The first one at $54.46, $40.48, and I have two resistance levels at $74.17 and $83.78. Now, to get confirmation, this is very important. So when I'm looking for confirmation on a chart, what that means is how strong are my support and resistance levels. And the way to get confirmation is to see whether or not the price changed from after breaking from a support level into a resistance and from a resistance level into a support. And what do you mean by that? So now looking at the chart, you will see, for example, we'll give the example of resistance first. In order for me to see a resistance level or a confirmation, what I'm looking for is, of course, we have our resistance at $83, so where the price rejected the most. Now I want to see, hey, did that same price have a support bounce? And you can see that the market, once it broke above that level, we did in fact see multiple wicks using that same level as support. That is a confirmation for me that this is the line that I'm going to be going with. Just like from a support level, did my support level turn into resistance? And you can see we had $74.17 could be used as support. You can see we saw a few bounces on that range, right? Then it turned into resistance. So once again, we saw a bounce, then when it broke, it turned into resistance. Do you guys remember my level, of course, down here at $54? You can see at $54, we saw that break, and look what happened to the chart. The same level now turned into resistance. And that gives you the confirmation of whether or not your support and resistance lines are accurate. So now that we have gone ahead and drawn our daily resistance and support levels, I would go ahead on the 4-hour time frame and then look at the current price action. The reason I do that is because you can see, although we had our major resistance levels drawn, on the 4-hour time frame, there was a few candles that we did see break above that zone, but we can see that it was a failure, right? Buyers tried to break above, but they could not break above into that zone. So what I would do on this time frame on the 4 hours is I would go ahead and draw another resistance line. And the reason is because I want to know exactly where the market rejected on the 4-hour time frames. Now, I wouldn't go ahead and make the line the same. I would probably change it into a color white to let me know that that is going to be my 4-hour resistance zone. So where exactly the market rejected the most, or of course, where I can start looking to buy if we saw a break. And I'll go ahead and show you guys that in episode 2. But for now, we will stick with only support and resistance. And you can see that at $76.91, we saw quite a bit of resistance on this zone. So that is exactly where I would go ahead and draw my resistance level. Just like on a support standpoint, you can see that, of course, we have our $54 of major support. But where exactly on the chart did we see a lot of support bounces? And you can see that we had quite a bit of support bounces right here within this range at $67.52. You can see that although there were quite a few wicks in between, you can see that that was a very strong support level. Buyers were waiting at that level. Now, once again, how do I confirm that that is the level I want to choose for my support? Well, all we do is look at it from this perspective. Was this line being used as resistance as well? And you can see price did in fact hit that level as resistance Once it broke above, it did in fact use that level as support. That's my confirmation on the 4-hour now that I have a good support line drawn out at $67.52. Now that you have your support and resistance lines drawn out, you don't necessarily want to overcomplicate things. And what I mean by that is when you are trading on the 4-hour time frame, you don't necessarily want to go ahead and start drawing in between lines at these levels. So for example, you can see that, oh, hey, there was a bunch of support line tests right here too. Oh, hey, there was a bunch of support lines here too. What that does is it causes your trading to overthink and overcomplicate it. That's what I usually recommend, is you want to stick with 2 major resistance on the daily, stick to 2 major resistance on the support, and on the 4-hour time frames, stick to 1 resistance and 1 support. The reason you do that is because you only want to pay attention to the bigger picture. And you can see on Litecoin, for example, that the price right now hasn't really been moving. Although we did see quite a few breaks, but we have pretty much been trading within the same range. So that is why I tell you guys not to overcomplicate your trading and try to stick with the main levels of support and resistance. Now, this is the end of episode 1. If you've made it this far, I really do appreciate you watching, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, episode 2, we will be talking about exponential moving averages and how you can go ahead and draw support and resistance followed with exponential moving averages to make it more accurate. I will see you guys next week, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week.